I am here representing the municipality of Chios as a member of the council of the municipality. Chios is a Greek island in the center of the Aegean Sea, near the Turkish coastline. For the last few months, we are one of the main points of entry of refugees that are traveling towards Europe. We are not unfamiliar with the problem because we had numbers of refugees for the last several years, but there is a sudden change in the last few months, and to be honest, we are not prepared to deal with this shift. Now we're talking daily for very large numbers of refugees and migrants, several hundreds, thousands per day, and that it was a surprise for us. We are not prepared, and we did not have the resources to deal with this new reality. To be more exact, at some point during the summer, we found that the public spaces, the public areas of the municipality were filled with migrants. Hundreds of migrants and refugees in the streets, in the parks, in the port, in the squares of the municipality. And it was something we had to deal with. Although the municipality, our municipality, and most of the municipalities, do not have the jurisdiction, the actual jurisdiction, to handle the problem. And of course, they're not equipped, they do not have the resources to deal with the problem. We thought that we were obliged to get involved in this. It was a matter of political and ethical responsibility, and for the refugees and for our citizens, to try to manage the best way we could this situation. In the last few months, we have set initially one camp in the central garden of the city, which reached approximately 65 tents and was hosting about approximately 1,000 refugees. In the last 2 weeks, we have built a second camp in the perimeter of the Chios fortress, which is done with assistance of the UNHCR and fulfilling all the necessary provisions, standards for hosting migrants. It is going to give a settlement to about 1,000 more refugees. But even with this, we are far enough from meeting the needs at this point. As a municipality, we had to cope with a lot of problems. We had thousands of people, and were not organized. There was nobody to help them. So we have to find solutions about problems like where they're going to stay, how they're going to feed, provide clothes, provide medical care, provide information and guidance about how they're going to continue their problem, and at the same time making sure that the function of the city, the function of the municipality was not going to be compromised, and to keep the level of services to our citizens that were obliged to provide. This proved to be a very difficult task, especially for small municipalities like the municipality of Chios, that we do not have enough personnel, we don't have enough financial support. So the number of refugees that we have to help, it was disproportionate to our abilities. So we had to try and improvise and find solutions to help the situation. Luckily for us, there was a lot of support from the local community. Dozens of volunteers, a lot of donations for food, medicine, clothes, Later on, we had gradually a lot of NGOs appeared on the scene and helped us in many, many things we could not handle. But nevertheless, all this situation was a large burden for the municipality, financially, logistically, for many points of view. And we are trying to keep up with the waste management, with the provision of fresh water and running water, of clothes distribution, things like that. And we feel that the municipalities had been the main actor of managing this situation. And the municipalities were there at the first point and will be there until the end of this problem. So we must find a way to reinforce the municipalities, support them, and give them all the necessary tools to do the job that they have to do now. And that means keeping the standards of services they are providing to their citizens, and on the same time playing a crucial and leading role on managing the refugee crisis. That means that we need financial support, we need personnel, we need guidance, and most of all, we need coordination and a way to communicate with the rest of the links in the chain on the route, of the Balkan route. I have the feeling that there are several municipalities at this point on Greece, but also on other European countries, that they are facing more or less the same problems that we have. And we must find a way to build some venues of communication, of coordination, and most of all, find a way to communicate the good practices and the solutions that are working, so that we will all be prepared to manage the situation as best as possible. But at this point, I have to mention also that we are receiving a lot of help from the UNHCR, from the United Nations. They were there almost from the beginning of the crisis, monitoring, guiding, and providing technical support and material support whenever it was necessary. And they have the expertise that we do not have, or didn't have at least, and they help us very much to do the right things and make the right decisions. But we have to continue and make it even more complete, more compound as a solution. Also, we think as a municipality that we are investing a lot of time and a lot of resources on this issue. It will be, I could say that at this point, most of the time of the mayor and several members of the council is devoted on this matter of how to handle the refugee crisis and all the issues that come from this problem. And a large part of the resources and the personnel and the money of the municipality are invested at this problem. But we try to think that even in this situation, there are some opportunities for development, and there is something good to come from this story. I can give you an example. Recently, the municipality of Chios bought an abandoned factory in the surrounding area, planning to transform it in a hotspot, in a place where the refugees will be for hospitalization, reception, registration, and all the necessary acts. But we keep in mind that after a few months, few years, when this problem will be resolved, we hope that it will be finally resolved, we think that this is an opportunity at this place to make other things, to use it for other purposes, for development purposes like recycling and things like that, and to use it for the benefit of the citizens and of the municipality of Chios. During this period that we are dealing with refugee crisis, there are some issues that we noticed that we think that were important to be pointed out, and that is that there is a matter about the medical care of the refugees. And in fact, in our municipality, we strived to offer medical care, and we are grateful that we had a lot of volunteers, doctors and nurses, and from the local medical association. But what was obvious is that when the refugees keep on their journey towards Central Europe, there is a lack of information. I mean that we are trying to help, we give medicine, but when the refugees go, this information is lost. That means in the next city and the next city, it is not possible for the doctors there to know what was happening before, what we did in Chios, what happened in Athens, what happened later on. That means that there is a need that some way we have to make a network or find a way to pass this information from one stop of the journey to another. Some kind of medical record, medical file that will accompany the refugees during the movement all the way up the Balkan route. In that way, it will be easier to coordinate all our efforts to provide medical care throughout all this process. And the second thing that I would like to point is that we noticed that there were a lot of children, that they were traveling unattended, in our opinion, without accompanying persons. And it was something that was very difficult for us to deal with it and handle it. And I suppose this is a problem and for the rest of the cities and the rest of the countries that these children travel. I know that some efforts are made to this direction to handle this problem, but I believe a solution must be found soon. We must find a way that these children are recognized, are registered as children who travel alone, and find some way to help them complete the trip and monitor these children all the way until they reach their destination. I believe it's the least that we can do about that. And of course, if we can provide organized hospitality and settlement, it will be even better. But at least make sure that they will complete their journey with safety. Some of the problems we had to solve, some of the challenges we faced, it was that we had, as a municipality, to provide water, running water, toilets, electricity, in places, in area of the municipality that normally there was no need for things like that. So we had to establish new facilities there, and it was a problem. Also, we had to deal with the waste management, and that proved to be a big challenge because we are talking about a large number of people with a lot of waste. To give you an example, even if we just consider the number of life jackets we have every day on the beaches and on the shore of the island, we are talking about hundreds and sometimes thousands of life jackets and wreckages from the boats that arrive. That somebody has to collect all this and manage it in the process, and that was proved to be a very difficult situation. Although our municipality used the maximum of the resources we could afford on dealing with the refugees crisis, that means personnel, equipment, buildings, whatever we provide, it was still far from enough to manage appropriately the situation. So, but it was a very, very positive thing that the society on the island was very, very active on this matter and wanted very much to help the refugees. We have dozens of volunteers, people who are every day there, helping in the distribution of the food, of the clothes, managing the tents. We have doctors as volunteers. We have teachers who were coming at the camps and they were make activities for the children, playgrounds to play, to keep them occupied and not think so badly about the whole situation. We had help from the church, which provided buildings for the refugees to stay, and at some point also food for the refugees. So it was an effort, let's say, an effort between also the municipality and all the volunteers. It was an effort that came from the whole society of the island. And that was very good because it was our only hope, our only chance to make something important, because otherwise, if we were alone, it was very difficult to cope with this. And in all this process, we saw the need of coordination between the municipality and all the volunteers and all the NGOs that they were on the field acting for the benefit of the refugees. Also, you must keep in mind that Chios is a small island with about 50,000 permanent occupiers, citizens. And that means that the number of refugees we're receiving is rather disproportionate to the population of the island. Until now, approximately this year, we have received about 100,000, even more refugees. That creates other problems. For example, the hospital of the island is a hospital designed to meet the needs of about 50,000 people. It is not equipped, it does not have enough personnel to manage all this, the extra need for medical care that comes from the refugees that arrive. And at this moment, and somebody should mention that the hospital, the personnel of the hospital, they are helping, they're providing medical care for all the serious cases that cannot be managed on the field from the volunteers. And that means that we are doing specific examinations, we do surgeries, all that is necessary. And that means an extra work for the hospital, which is already understaffed, which already has financial problems. And of course, there is no idea, there is no provision, who is going at some point to, let's say, pay the bill of this extra medical care provided to the refugees. And this is something that is a matter probably for the European Union to decide, that if at some point you provide medical care for the refugees, somebody has to pay the cost of it. Because we are doing it now, we do it because we feel that this is the right thing, that we have to do it, that we have to help all the people who need medical care, and this is the way generally in Greece that we deal with these things. But never forget that there is a cost there. There are materials, there are things that have to be paid. And somebody at some point has to make a decision about how this problem is going to be solved.